God here, and welcome to the Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is week 16 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California. And through 15 weeks of this very season, Brad and I are officially even in all of our picks up to this point. Mr. Hoyseth, how are you doing this week?
Well, it's just kind of the same old story, isn't it? I mean, COVID is kind of dominating the landscape when it comes to a lot of things, but in this particular case with, if you want to bet on some football games, there's some, I'm starting to find some trends that if you are a gambler out there, if you can watch the wires, on Thursday afternoons, you can still probably get some really great deals on games, and I'm going to talk about one of them, actually two of them, that I think you and I are picking today. And so there's just a lot of guys that are going to be having to go through COVID-19 protocols. They tested positive, and it just seems to be every day it's getting worse and worse. And I don't know what the NFL is going to do. I would suspect that we may have some games moved back again this week.
Yeah.
For the avid football fan like myself, I loved having football 5 days last week. It wasn't such a thrill for my wife, but we make do. And so welcome to the holidays to everybody out there. Hope you have a great holiday, whatever it is you celebrate. And, let's get to it.
Yeah, I was just super quick going to say the Tuesday night football games were absolutely fantastic. And, if the NFL could somehow figure out how to give us football on Tuesdays too, that could be, I think they sort of stumbled onto something here, why not? I mean, you give us a Thursday game, you give us a Monday night game. Why not throw in a Tuesday night game?
How about Wednesday morning? I'm good with that. I mean,
well, some of us have to work Wednesday morning, but the games were just great to watch, and it was fun, and I agree. My family not terribly happy about the National Football League's decision to have games on a Tuesday. Before we get into this, Brad, just real quick, because I don't think we're going to talk about the Seattle Seahawks at all today. But what is your quick opinion on Russell Wilson? And I'm bitter because Russell Wilson basically got me kicked out of my fantasy football playoffs this year when he posted one less than 2 points in fantasy numbers. And that essentially did me in. Is he done? Is he really done in Seattle?
It's hard to say. He clearly has had a rough year. And they've had a lot of injuries there, and there's not a tremendous amount of talent around him. And it seems as if defenses have kind of figured out to box him into the pocket. We saw the same thing really with Kyler Murray last week. He didn't look very good, and all of a sudden now the Cardinals are a team that's struggling. But the Seahawks, they don't have much of a running game. They haven't had Chris Carson all season long. The defense isn't particularly good. It kind of kept them in the game for a little while with the Rams last week. But I think, as I mentioned maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think the message from Pete Carroll is maybe getting a little tired in the locker room.
Yeah.
There's an expiration date on a lot of these guys. And at some point in time, you just need somebody else talking in front of the room. And so I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I don't know if he's done or not, but we'll find out.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Pete Carroll's definitely done in Seattle, and I'm just sort of curious to see if Russell hangs around or if he decides to make the move. I'm beginning to think he'll be out of there. But that being said, Brad, let's go ahead and dive into our top 10 games worth actually spending some money on for week number 16 of your National Football League season.
All right, first one I have is the game tonight. The 49ers are at the Tennessee Titans. The 49ers are 3-point favorites. It's a game that has been, there's been a lot of guys that have been now ruled out. I know Tennessee supposedly gets A.J. Brown back tonight, but they're down a couple of offensive linemen, and they don't have much of a running game, and Ryan Tannehill has really been struggling recently. And I just get a sense that the 49ers are kind of catching their stride. They're playing good football. I know at the beginning of the year, I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. I think I might even pick them to win the Super Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember if I picked them to win or to lose to Buffalo. I can't remember, but they look like a good football team right now. And if they make the playoffs, I think they could really be a difficult out for anybody that has to play them, because they can do a little bit of everything offensively. They can really run the ball down your throat at times, and with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk kind of emerging, and George Kittle's playing great right now. That's a dangerous team. So going on the road to a team that is less than perfect right now, Tennessee, I'm going to take the Niners. I'm going to give up those 3 points.
Yeah, if the playoffs were to start today, the 49ers would be the one team I wouldn't want to face. I mean, they are really, it doesn't even matter who they put back there running back at this point. I mean, they're
a dime a dozen, Dave. I keep telling you that.
Yeah, to them it doesn't. So I agree with just about everything you said there, and it's hard for me just personally to root against Vrabel at home. Mike Vrabel is one of those guys that by no means has lost his locker room like a Pete Carroll. He's on the upside, of his career. And he's the guy that pulls a rabbit out of his hat when you don't think that he's going to. It is a Thursday night game. That's where my concern is in this one. That being said, I mean, George Kittle, the running game, Deebo Samuel, there's just too much positive momentum on the side of the 49ers. So I will agree with you and give up the 3 and take the 49ers in this one.
Yeah, they just look like a team that's, there's a few teams that seem to be playing better football and more consistent football. They seem to be not as dinged up athletically as they were earlier in the season. They've gotten a lot of guys back. They're a team that doesn't seem to be, and you cross your fingers on this, but they don't seem to be getting caught up in the COVID disaster right now. And so, Tennessee, they were a 1 seed, just a couple of weeks back, if I'm not mistaken. And, if they start going in the wrong direction, the AFC is just so tight right now that, they could find themselves out of the playoffs. And there's been talk of Derrick Henry coming back in a couple of weeks, but I really haven't seen anything to make me believe it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And, Julio Jones I don't think he's quite the player he once was, clearly. And A.J. Brown's still dealing with a chest issue, and he's going to play tonight, but I just get a sense that they've got a lot of guys that aren't going to be there tonight because of COVID. And I think that when you go into a good game like this one without a bunch of guys, I think it's gonna hurt them.
Yep. All right. So Brad, how about them Cowboys? We've got the Cowboys at home against the football team to be named later, the Washington football team. Cowboys favored by 10. I've sort of seen this line, all over the place. But everything's been between 11 and 9.5. We had it at 10 when we put this together. So you sort of look at this, and this defense is just playing so well. Your favorite quarterback to announce in the National Football League this year has to be Taylor Heineke. Heineke is allegedly will be back for this game. That being said, I just don't see Washington having enough firepower to stay with the Cowboys in this game. And we saw it before, so I don't think we're going to, see anything too major happen in this game. I've got the Cowboys all the way in this one, and I'm going to go ahead and give up the 10.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The Cowboys, unlike your team last week in fantasy football, that defense pretty much won me my opening fantasy football playoff game last week. I've got them and the Rams as my defense. I chose the Cowboys last week, and I'm choosing the Cowboys again this week. And, Heineke, there's rumors, like he said, that he's going to be back, and I think he will be back. But that's a team that's teetering on the edge of, being out of the playoffs, and I think they're considered a bubble team. They might be a game or so back of the Vikings. The Vikings seem to be sitting in that 7 spot right now. But they're not playing very good football. They kind of got pushed around by the Eagles. Plus, they're coming off a short rest. They just played on Tuesday or something like that. Yeah. So that's a tough situation. And I think that Dallas defense right now is very opportunistic. I can't see them not getting at least a couple of turnovers, turning them into points. I think Pollard might be back this week for the Cowboys, which just makes them that much better. So yeah. I'm with you. I'm going to give those points. I'm going to take the Cowboys.
Yeah, and I didn't look at any prop bets at all, but I would take the over on 5 sacks in this game for the Cowboys if you have a shot at it. This Cowboy defense is definitely peaking at the right time, and the offense is sluggish, and Dak's not all the way there, but the defense alone can win this game for the Cowboys by 10.
All right, another game we'll be keeping a watch on, and we'll be the only ones watching it, will be the Lions at the Falcons.
And I thought you put the Jags-Jets game back on the
I had the Jags-Jets at one point. I just did that to frustrate you a little bit, but I took the Lions at the Falcons, and I play in the over-under, which is at 42.5. And I'm going to take the over in this one. And basically, I think the Falcons have actually got a pretty decent defense. And I think their offense at times can be okay. They're kind of an all or nothing team. They either score touchdowns or they don't do anything. This year, Younghoe Koo, their kicker, just hasn't been that active because the Falcons have been very good in the red zone. And I don't know if it's because of the new tight end or what have you, but I also saw something in the Lions last week that looked okay. I mean, offensively, they seem to have finally figured some things out. Maybe it's just Jared Goff being there for 14, 15 weeks now, but I just thought that over-under at 42.5 was pretty low for an NFL game. It's not like we were getting two of the worst offenses in the league. We're just kind of getting like 1.5 of them. So I'm going to take the over at 42.5.
Look, that Lions game last week against the Cardinals, one word for you, Brad: disgraceful.
Look at that one.
It's just absolutely disgraceful. That performance or the lack of performance that the Cardinals had in that game. That being said, I look at this as a little bit of confidence. Maybe some of what Dan Campbell is saying is starting to seep into this team. Matt Ryan's always good for 21 to 27 points in a game. This to me feels like a pretty easy take the over in this particular game. I will be on pins and needles though, Brad, if it comes down to your favorite kicker in the National Football League. But I think there's going to be over 50 points scored in this game. So this was an easy one for me. I'm going with the over as well.
Yeah, and it's two teams that don't seem to be having a ton of problems with the COVID protocols right now. I haven't heard a lot of things about the Lions or Falcons with guys being out. So they should have their starters there. And neither defense is great. Particularly, the Lions aren't very good. But the thing I like in this one is just that the Falcons, last year, if you had, Younghoe Koo as your kicker, you were great. I mean, he was kicking 3-4 field goals every single week. And this year he's not doing a lot in terms of making field goals because he's just not getting the opportunities. The Falcons are either scoring touchdowns or Matt Ryan gets sacked. Yeah. and he takes them out of field goal position. So,
yeah. All right. So moving on to where Dave DeBaugh was completely wrong last week. When I picked the Jaguars, Brad. over the over the Texans in that game. This week, the pesky Texans are at home against the Chargers. The Chargers seem to be heading in the right direction. They're a little bit of an up and down team. I'm not sure how well they travel. that could be an issue in this game. But it is go time for all these teams that are on the verge of making the playoffs. You have to take these bad teams seriously at this point of the season. You've got the Chargers going in. You've got to give up a whopping 8.5 points in this particular game. There's so much I like about this Chargers offense. There's so much I worry about when it comes to their defense. At the same time, I'm really not terribly concerned about the Texans offense. They were obviously playing a Division II football team last week in the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the Chargers in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. This is one of those games again where COVID has kind of popped and reared its head.
Yeah.
Austin Eckler is not going to play. I think Brandon Cooks is out for Houston. He was basically the big star last week, getting the ball from Davis Mills. But I feel like I'm with you. The Chargers are kind of like, they're almost like the Vikings in a sense that they're just up and down. You never really know what you're going to get there. The consistent play here is that Houston isn't very good. I mean, last week, I believe, was an anomaly, playing a bad football team. But now they get a Chargers team who's a clear upgrade. They don't have the number one weapon on offense in Brandon Cooks. And they haven't had much of a running game all season long. Justin Herbert, to me, is, to me, he's still not quite there, Dave.
Yeah.
He can look great at times. He's got a cannon of an arm. And I'm not even really sure that it's entirely his fault. I think the play calling there is pretty poor. They go wide open all the way down the field, and then all of a sudden they'll get in these bunch formations down close to the goal line, and they don't have any of their best players in the game.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. It seems to get an amazing amount of balls batted down, Justin Herbert does. 4 or 5 balls every single game. And he's so good when he's rolling out of the pocket, and they just don't do it very much. And so, but I'm going to take the Chargers. I'm with you. I'm going to give the points. Los Angeles on the road in Houston.
Yeah, you can't go with the Texans in this game, especially with Cooks out. They just have really no firepower. I will say this about COVID. Some of the teams have done a really good job bringing players in off the street, essentially. And they've been able to, sort of get those players worked into the roles that they need them worked into. But at some point, there's nobody left on the street, Brad. And it's the end of the football season. We're in that final quarter of it. And, some of these teams, if they're not playing the Jaguars, they're going to go and just pack it in. So that's my sense here. And I think that, the Chargers have, over the last couple of years, have certainly played their fair share of games without Austin Eckler. They know how to win without him. Biggest concern is on the coaching staff, and them not looking past this Texans team, because we know even a team like the Texans can bite you if you do that. So I'm sticking with the Chargers.
Yeah, we didn't even touch on that disastrous loss for the Chargers last week. I mean, that's a team that should have scored 50 points in that game, and the coach kept going for it on 4th and goal and 4th and 1, and I think they ended up going for 4th down like 5 times. They only made one of them.
Yeah.
And, just at some point you just got to kick a field goal. And had they done that 1 out of the 3 times, they would have never had to go to overtime and lost that football game. So,
you got to sort of like, So, statistics, right? There are statistics, there are analytics, and there are these things that tell you to do it this way, regardless of what the situation is. Those things are ridiculous because in sports, it's also about feel, and it's also about matchups. And when you're talking about like the Chargers, like they just handed points away in that game, and that was just you just can't do that against some better teams in the National Football League. There's nothing wrong with kicking a 25-yard field goal. I totally get it. John Harbaugh going for two or going for it on fourth down. I just don't think that you can use a blanket statement like clearly the Chargers did, which is we're just going to go for it on every fourth down. That's how you lose games in the National Football League. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, and on one of them there in the fourth quarter, as I mentioned earlier, they didn't have Austin Eckler on the field. They didn't have Keenan Allen on the field. They didn't have Jalen Guyton on the field. They had 3 tight ends in the game. And if you're going to go for it in a tight situation, at least get your best players on the field. It was obvious that Justin Jackson was going to get the ball, and then he tries to hop over the top and he gets blasted and fumbles, and the next thing you know, the ball's going the other way. So, they got some issues there, but I do like the aggressive nature. I don't mind a guy going for it, but there's a time and a place to just kick the field goal.
Brad, you listed so many people that were on the field. I was like, did they also have like a ghost runner on the field? Are we going to be at a point in the National Football League where they're going to be like, the COVID's hit us so bad, we're switching to 8-8, 8-8 football, 8 on the offensive side, 8 on the defensive side.
All right, I'm going to my next game here. It's the Broncos at the Raiders. I'm playing another over-under, which is at 41.5. I looked at this and I thought that's extremely low. Teddy Bridgewater's gone. I'm not sure that that's a negative for the Broncos. That was kind of a scary injury. He went down, didn't move for a few minutes. There was actually rumors of him, being tested to see if he was going to be okay to play this week, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be Drew Lock. But these two teams kind of know each other. I kind of get a sense that there's going to be, it could end up being more of a shootout than a low scoring game. Both these teams desperately need a win. It's in Vegas where the conditions should be perfect. I'm a believer, Dave, and you may agree or not agree with this. I think the Broncos, when it comes to the running game, their 1-2 punch of those two guys is pretty darn impressive. I can only think of a handful of teams in the league, maybe the Vikings with Cook and Madison, that really have a better 1-2 punch than the two guys there with Melvin Gordon. I forget, it was Devontae something or another. They're both good football players, and it just seems like that's a team with a lot of offensive weapons. And so to have that low of an over-under against a Raider defense that isn't very good, I just thought it was a little bit low, so I took the over.
Yeah, you can see this game being played between the 25-yard lines, back and forth between the 25-yard lines. Lots of field goals in this game. If I still was in the fantasy football playoffs, I've got the Broncos kicker, and this would be a good week for him. This is was a little bit tricky to analyze. I did sort of waver on this one a little bit back and forth. But I'm going to go ahead and assume that the Raider offense is going to score a hefty amount of points. And just by default, the Broncos are going to come near scoring 20 points in this game. It is a division rivalry game. These guys tend to score a lot of points on each other, especially indoors. With the issues with COVID and honestly, this Raider defense is just not that good, Brad.
No, but they're good enough to take Drew Lock for a pick six once.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Well, I mean, who isn't good enough to take Drew Lock for a pick six? Maybe we'll get 2 out of Drew Lock in this game. And you just watch Denver actually win this game because like they have been sort of surprisingly, playing a little bit better. I don't think you're going to see a coaching change that you'd like to see in Denver happen just because they've been able to hover around 500 without a quarterback. I mean, who do you blame this on? Can you really blame it on the coaching staff? Or, do you have to realize that you guys gave us another mediocre quarterback that is a middle of the road guy that's not actually going to, maybe he doesn't lose games for us, but he's not going to go out and win games for us. You can't expect, to get into double digit wins with quarterbacks like that in the National Football League. That being said, I'll just go ahead and agree with you on the over on this one.
Yeah, to me, John Elway is one of the great enigmas as a general manager. He was one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch play the game. He was a great player, probably underestimated in today's view, but the guy could flat out play. But he certainly has no eye for drafting a quarterback or finding one on the free agent market because they go through. It seems like they go through two quarterbacks every single season.
Yeah. It's just nothing there. But coaching change in Denver at the end of the season?
I don't think so. I think they should, but I don't think they will. I think it's a fairly entertaining team to watch. I actually enjoy watching the Broncos. They've got a lot of talent on offense. They just don't make it work. And I think a lot of that comes down to play calling and just bad quarterback play. And, their defense keeps them in a lot of games. They're pretty talented defensively, but they're just kind of a 500 team that, every once in a while they look great and upset somebody, and every once in a while they look terrible and lose to somebody bad.
Yeah, it's a fun defense to watch play. If you like defense, the Broncos tend to be pretty entertaining to watch. All right, Brad, I think you're up.
Oh, okay. No, that was me. I was Broncos at Raiders.
Oh, you were Broncos at Raiders. Oh my gosh. Apologies. All right. So I've got the Rams at the Minnesota Vikings in this particular game. Brad being in Southern California, originally from the great state of Minnesota, this must be a bizarre game for him to have to pick. I look at this game and I was absolutely 100% going to, take the 3 that you were giving me because the Vikings seem to be sort of coming around. Their running game's heading in the right direction. And, all these things were happening. And then the roller coaster ride kicked in once again for the Minnesota Vikings. Once again, like if you saw the Vikings play the Chicago Bears, like any other team, just about any other good team in the National Football League would have won that game by at least 30 points. Wouldn't have given up a touchdown at the end of the game. The Vikings were trying to find a way. Like if there could have just been 2 more minutes on the clock, the Bears would have had a shot at coming out against this Viking team. It is an absolute parenthood movie roller coaster ride that the Vikings are actually on. And the reference is Steve Martin riding a roller coaster in the movie Parenthood. And that is exactly what this Viking season has been all about. That being said, I just really struggle with Sean McVay's inability to actually be conservative on offense when he should be conservative on offense. Odell Beckham Jr. is really he's like a one-hit wonder. He might actually do something for you once during a game. It isn't going to happen twice. They are absolutely hurting because they don't have Robert Woods on this team right now. I look at this game, and even with Dalvin Cook not playing because of COVID, I am still going to stick with the Vikings, and I will happily take your 3 points that you're going to hand me in this one.
Yeah, I think you're going to need a lot more than 3 points, Dave. I really like the Rams in this game. No Dalvin Cook. That means more Kirk Cousins. And
he hasn't been. Here's it. Statistically, he hasn't been that bad.
Yeah, but you know who's been really good?
No, I don't.
No, Matthew Stafford's got the number 2 passer rating in the league. That kind of surprised me when I looked it up. He's the number behind Aaron Rodgers is the number 2 passer rating in the league.
Who's third or fourth?
I think Cousins is fourth or fifth, something like
he's
that.
He's in the neighborhood.
Yeah, he's in the neighborhood. Kyler Murray is up there. I forget the 4th or 5th one that's in there, but Matthew Stafford has played really well lately, and it seems as if they're starting to kind of figure it out. And I liked the addition of Odell Beckham. He didn't get much play last week, but they're getting some pretty good play out of guys like Van Jefferson, and they're healthy now. They got Tyler Higbee back. I just saw today where I forget the guy that started at running back at the beginning of the season. He's now he's getting over his Achilles, and he's been taken off the IR, so he's got 3 weeks to get back. Cam Akers, and that defense right now is playing great, Dave.
Yeah,
and without Dalvin Cook, you still got Adam Thielen. I'm not convinced he's 100%. Here's the problem with the Vikings. It's going to be Adam Thielen this week if they're going to win, because Justin Jefferson's going to get a very, very good dose of Jalen Ramsey, and that is not very good matchup for him. And so this Rams defense, though, is playing really great. This is the best football they've played all season long. And the drawback from the Rams is that they had a late game last week.
Yeah,
they ended up having their game moved back, so they haven't had a lot of practice time. But they seem to be kind of getting healthy, the Rams, at the right time, and they're not that far away from home field advantage. They're only like a game, I think, behind the Packers, and so I'm not a big Sean McVay fan, you know that. I'm not a big Mike Zimmer fan, you know that. I'm not a big Kirk Cousins fan, you know that. And so that's 2 negatives for the Vikings, 1 for the Rams. I'm going to take the Rams. I'm going to give the 3.
Look, I agree. It does come down to Thielen. If you're betting this game and you're betting it late, Saturday night or Sunday morning, and Adam Thielen's out, I stay away from it. Because without Thielen in this game, I'm rolling the dice that he's going to be back and he's going to be 90% of what he normally is. And that will make a real difference, because you're right. Jalen Ramsey, covering Justin Jefferson, that will prevent Jefferson from ever going deep. You just can't go deep on Jalen Ramsey in any real way. And it would just be, dink and dunk. If you're going to have Jefferson involved in the game at all. And they really don't want to do that with Justin Jefferson. They want to do 20 to 30 yards down the field with him. That might not be there if Thielen's not in the game, playing at 90%. So that's how I would play it. As of Thursday afternoon, I'm betting that Thielen, and you're not going to let me change on Sunday. So I'm sticking with the Vikes in this one. Just something tells me that this Viking, like the Rams, they don't need to win this game. The Vikings need to win this game. Need's important in life, Brad. Need is important.
It seems as if the Vikings have been in the playoffs for 6 weeks already, doesn't it?
Oh, roller coaster ride.
Every single game is critical.
It is absolutely crazy. One quick thing, though, I did want to point out. You brought up Kyler Murray a little bit earlier, and I just want to say this. Look, when the Vikings lost to the Detroit Lions, at least they didn't get blown out. I all season have been saying nice things about this Arizona Cardinal football team. It is over for me on the Cardinals. The Cardinals are not going to go anywhere. You cannot go into Detroit, a terrible team like that, and you can lose to Detroit. You just can't get beat by Detroit. And I have no faith now in the Arizona Cardinals as we move forward. I just had to.
Well, not only the Cardinals, Dave, but we're not going to talk about the Buccaneers either. Getting shut out in an NFL game is really challenging to do, especially when you have that kind of talent. and now they're going to go the rest of the season without Godwin at wide receiver. I think today they just put Leonard Fournette on IR, so he's out for at least a period of time.
He's out for the season,
which I believe is a plus for the Buccaneers. I've been telling you all season long, I think Ronald Jones is a better football player than Leonard Fournette. I think he offers you more in terms of being a breakaway back. He's faster. He's going to miss an occasional block. There's no question about that.
Ronald Jones is like that kid in high school. You're in class and he does well sometimes, but occasionally he just dozes off to sleep and the teacher starts yelling, Ronald. But Ronald, I'll
tell you what about Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones has electric talent where
his issue is concentration, because there's a reason they've been playing Fournette, and I've been hearing about Ronald Jones for 2 years now, I think. So I have to sort of jump in on that. But I think when you look at this, it's a Dandy Don Meredith moment for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Turn out the lights, the party's over. I had Tampa, I think, winning the Super Bowl back-to-back this year. And this is just too much for them to overcome, especially with Godwin. Evans is, great, but he's hit or miss. He's injured or on the COVID list. Who knows? Too many injuries. It's just going to be very hard for Tampa to overcome all those things. They're just not going to be able to peak, heading into the playoffs the way they did last year. They just don't have enough talent to get back there this year.
Well, if they're going to make any kind of run and turn things around here and make some positive strides in the playoffs, the defense has got to play better. They've got talent on that defense. They just haven't played very well.
I agree, but too many. There's just not enough weapons for you can only do so much with Gronk, and Gronk loses his effectiveness when there aren't two decent wide receivers on the field at any given time. And we saw it in New England at times, and we're seeing it here too. So, and then take away any semblance. Oh, sorry, Ronald. Take away Leonard Fournette, who did, a slightly better job catching the ball out of the backfield than a Ronald Jones does. I just think it's over for Tampa at this point.
All right, I'm going to go into my next game. It's the Browns at the Packers. It is the Packers are minus 7.5. They're favored. And I find that to be a rather large line, David. I know we're going to disagree on this one. I just the Packers are in the hot seat now. It has not been a good thing being the number one seed. And now they're the team that's the number one seed in the NFC. And the Browns, it seems, are going to get some guys back this week. They desperately need them back. And I think the Packers will win the game. But I just thought the 7.5 was a little rich for my blood. The Browns are in desperation mode. The Packers are not. I could see it being poor weather, low scoring affair, where it comes down to, one or two drives at the end of the game. And if that's the case, then I just don't like that big of a line. So I'm going to take the Browns. I'm going to take the 7.5.
Yeah. This was like, Brad's being nice. Thanks for my early holiday present, Mr. Hoysef, in this game. Weather would be the main thing that I think would prevent me from, on a Sunday morning, switching a bet or doing something different. And then obviously anything that happens between now and then with COVID. But this ramp or this Packer offense is starting to roll. I absolutely love AJ Dillon mixed with Aaron Jones. Those two together. If you want to talk about the best 1-2 punch in the National Football League, Brad, are you telling me that the two players they have in Denver are better than those two that they have in Green Bay? So I look at this, Aaron Rodgers, his big toe is getting a little healthier. As long as there's no major COVID outbreaks, I definitely I don't see the Packers having any issues with the Browns in this. Dare I say, the old Cleveland Browns are rearing their ugly heads and are back in the National Football League, as the Browns are suddenly, like this year, sort of reverting back to finding ways to lose, not finding ways to win. I just think that this Packer defense is getting better as the season goes on. I think they're going to do enough to slow Baker Mayfield and this Cleveland Browns offense down. Look, Baker Mayfield is not as good as the backup quarterback in Baltimore, Brad. And I'll leave it at that. I'll pass it over to you.
I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that aren't as good as the backup quarterback in Baltimore. I think he's going to be a hot target during the free agent market, is Brett Hundley. But no, I agree with you. I think the Aaron Jones-Dillon backfield is really, really talented. I think it's one of those 3 or 4 teams. I wish I would see more Aaron Jones and less Dillon. I think Aaron Jones is one of the more special backs in the league. Not only is he a great runner, but he's also a great pass catcher. He's got good power. I don't think they need to use Dillon as much as they have. I would rather see Aaron Jones on the field. But yeah, I think as the games get more important down the stretch here, I think you'll see more Aaron Jones. They got a scare earlier in the year with his knee when he went down. I think they thought they were going to lose him for a while and ended up only being 1 week out. And they've kind of played his return. But I think as the season wears down here, games get more important, Aaron Jones will be on the field, and you're going to see a lot less Dillon.
Yeah.
I know that they're going to be missing Valdez-Scantling this weekend because of COVID. But I just kind of feel like, remember 3, 4, 5 weeks into the season, we were talking about the Browns being the best team in football. I mean, now it seems like it's been a decade since then.
Yeah, it does. And, once again, like I feel bad because I want, Detroit to someday be good again. And I think it's sort of good for the National Football League having a good team in Cleveland. It's sort of entertaining. But it just they're just finding ways to lose. And honestly, this whole year has to have like not 1 but 2 asterisks next to it, just because everybody's dealing with COVID. And when your top 2 quarterbacks are out, your head coach is out, and your special teams guy is your head coach in the game. We have to be a little bit fair about how we sort of make fun of some of these teams at this point. But I think we're talking about a hot Packer team, and this one looked pretty easy to me on paper. Moving on to a game which I think is also easy to pick. Steelers at the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of people were down on the Chiefs. If you think about 7 weeks ago, people were talking about the Chiefs not making the playoffs, the demise of the Kansas City Chiefs. I still don't think the offense is right. The defense is way better than it was before. The tough thing on this one, Brad, is it's Big Ben Roethlisberger at the end of his career. He's in his swan song dance. He's just at the last couple games, and that Big Ben. Forget about there being no offensive line. You just, that's what scares me about this game. But I'm still going to go ahead and take the Kansas City Chiefs. I think this defense is vastly improved. I think they'll put up enough points and should be able to win this game by 7 or more. But I am scared by Big Ben for sure.
Yeah, this is the line. And this is the other game I said I was going to talk about as it relates to COVID, because Tyreek Hill is in COVID protocol. Travis Kelce's in protocol. I think Butker has got to miss the game because he was unvaccinated.
Oh.
And so, interestingly, I've been watching this line pretty closely. It opened up at 9.5, Kansas City. And then it went all the way down to 7 after the news of Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. And now you can still get it at 10 at a couple of places. One of them, Caesars, and then at the other one is Vegas Insider. And so, which tells me something strange is going on. I've heard some rumors that this is a game because of so many guys being out. It might be moved all the way to Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I think the books have kept the line high because I think they believe that both Kelsey and Tyreek Hill are going to be cleared by then. And so otherwise, I would think this line would have dropped, below 7, 6.5 maybe. But it still remains at a handful of places at 10 and 8.5 and 9 and stuff like that. And so it tells me that the bookies think this game is getting moved. And they're anticipating that both Hill and Kelsey now it's come out have both been vaccinated. So all they've got to do is, show a negative test and no symptoms, and they'll be playing. And so neither one of them has been cleared or anything like that yet because it was, pretty new news just a couple of days ago. But I'm hearing rumblings that this game could be moved all the way to as late as Tuesday. That's what I'm betting on. I'm going to take the Chiefs. I'm with you.
Yeah.
But ordinarily without all those guys, I would think about going to the other side of the fence and playing Roethlisberger and stuff like that. But it's just not a very good football team, Pittsburgh. And I get a sense that this is the end of the line. Obviously, it is the end of the line for Roethlisberger. He's already said he's going to retire and not play anymore. So, but I'm with you. I'm going to take Kansas City. And I'm going to give up, 7 points? Yeah.
I mean, you look at this Pittsburgh Steelers team, Brad, and you look at what they're missing. And hell of a coaching job by Mike Tomlin. I mean, they're 7-6-1. I mean, if you didn't look at, if you just watched their games, you'd be like, that's a 4-win team. Yeah. that's maybe a 5-win team. So, hell of a job by Tomlin in this. There's so much uncertainty around with COVID in this Chiefs game, but I'm going to go ahead and lay the 7 and agree with you and take the Chiefs nonetheless.
All right, I'm going to go to my last game. I switched games on you, Dave, and you showed some frustration. Earlier in the week, I had the Jacksonville and Jets game, and I've decided to move off of that because of some of the stuff that happened this afternoon. And instead, I'm going to the Miami-New Orleans game. And as of an hour or so ago, you could still get the Saints as a 3-point favorite. Well, about an hour and 15 minutes ago, some big news came out. 6 or 7 guys more at New Orleans now are going to be out because of COVID. A couple of them are offensive linemen. A couple of them are defensive linemen. One of their starting safeties. They've already moved on to, I believe, their third-string quarterback. Obviously, Jameis Winston's been gone for most of the season now, and Taysom Hill has got COVID. But they're going to Ian Book or Bach or something like that, the young kid out of Notre Dame. And so New Orleans is not always well in New Orleans. Yes, they won and they beat the Buccaneers 9-0, but with, I think, 5 of the players named today that were taken out because of COVID were defensive guys. And, you can only sustain so much. And that just seems like a lot of guys. And so I saw that line because already the line has shifted to Miami being a 1-point favorite at some of the other places. But fortunately, we got it at 3 with the Saints being the favorite. So I took the Dolphins.
Yeah. It's you know what? I would still take the Dolphins in this game, even if all those other Saints players were playing. And if you're going to give me 3 points in this, you're still going to give me 3 points in this game. I'll definitely take the Dolphins. The Dolphins are hot right now. And that's what do you got for me?
Dave, I plugged this thing in an hour ago, and it had gone to Miami being favored by 1 in a few places. there's a couple of places now where they're favored by 3 already. So this line has moved 6 points in the last hour at some places.
Yeah. I it's all over the place, obviously. And look, I said this earlier too. Some of the players who are coming off the streets to fill in, or were on their extended rosters are not bad. Some of these guys are pretty good and will hold their own. It's always those those offensive linemen. When those offensive linemen go out, that's when I worry.
Yeah, they lost 2 of those too.
Yeah, it's one thing for like a defensive back to be out, or a linebacker, or a D lineman, but when your offense it's like
with a new quarterback, by the way,
with a new quarterback who's probably not a scrambler, if I remember correctly, more of a prototypical drop back quarterback is the kid coming from Notre Dame. So. I just sort of look at this, and despite all of this, it was definitely going to go with the Dolphins in this. Brad, let me ask you a question though. Doesn't it? It almost seems as if we got to week, I don't know when this COVID's been going crazy in the National Football League and in the NBA now, I think for maybe about 4 or 5 weeks. And it seemed like, there were some positive tests here and there throughout the earlier part of the season, but not at this level of testing. It's almost like we didn't test during the first 5 or 6 games of the season, and then we suddenly started testing again. Or what is going on? What is different in the National Football League now, where all of a sudden, everybody's testing positive? Same thing's happening in the NBA. Put on your doctor's hat.
Football it's a microcosm of society, Dave. And, you could say the same thing about, where you live, or Los Angeles, or Minneapolis, or Pittsburgh, or wherever. It seems to go in waves. And, once it gets into your community, it spreads, and somehow it's gotten into the football community. It's not like they're a long ways away from each other on that field. They jump into piles on each other in every single play. And I think it's just, it got more deep rooted 4 or 5 weeks ago, and it's not going away. Yeah. And so I don't know what the answer is. I don't think the NFL is in the problem solving. They just want to make money. And if they can move the Chiefs game and get a few of the extra stars on the field on Tuesday, rather than seeing, Byron Pringle and some of the other guys they have on that roster, they'd much rather have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce out there. So I just think it's just spreading, Dave. And it's just like your community or my community or any community out there in the country. It seems to go in waves, and they seem to go through a couple of month period where COVID is not that prevalent, and then all of a sudden a new variant comes in, or a new wave of it comes in, travelers, or whether it's the holidays, the people getting together, being indoors, what have you. It just seems like they're now in the peak of it in the NFL, and then they can't get rid of it. They got a problem.
Yeah. Not going to get too political here, but when a new variant pops up in a different country, it seems to me that the obvious thing to do is to shut down access from that country into our country. I'm just saying, not to wait for the first couple announcements that it's reached our shores, so to speak. It's just ridiculous. It's obvious. All right. Moving on to the last game of our top 10 games worth actually spending some money on this week. I've saved the best for last. The New York Football Giants, who have put their starting quarterback on ice, probably permanently, but currently they're just saying for the rest of this particular season. I've got the Giants at my surprise team of the year. Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia 76ers, Philadelphia Eagles, are actually favored.
Wait, does Julius Erving play for them? Or
he's coming back?
No, that means he's the Nets.
He's putting his ABA uniform on. So in this particular game, Eagles favored by 9.5. I love Jalen Hurts. Like their running game.
Is Allen Iverson still playing?
Well, he's certainly not practicing. I can tell you that. Practice. What's that? So Jalen Hurts, though, is definitely improving as the season's going on. Look, I mean, he's not Josh Allen. Let's be clear about that. He's not Justin Herbert, but he's a really nice, serviceable quarterback who seems to be learning from past mistakes. Really like how he controls and is running this Eagle offense. I have like no faith in the Giants offense at all. I like Nick Sirianno and this young coaching staff in Philadelphia. It's nice to see, Brad, a young coaching staff, out of the gate sort of get something right. And it's rare, right? Like, you see these rebuilds and it never happens in the first season. It just rarely happens in the first season. So it's good to see it happen with this Philadelphia Eagles, not 76er team. It is good to see that happen. I think you are absolutely, handing me another gift if you decide to go with the Giants in this game. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? Who's he going to throw the ball to?
Dave, it's the holiday season, so I'm going to give you a gift there. I like what the Eagles are doing, and I really like Jalen Hurts. I just don't like any of his weapons around him. And the Giants, if there's one thing they can do okay, it's play defense. And they're pretty good at stopping the run. And so I think they're going to force Jalen Hurts to put the ball in the air a little bit. Maybe that's a bad thing for the Giants. I don't know. The Giants' offense is a disaster, but I just kind of looked at this like it was a divisional game between two organizations that know each other pretty well. I know the Giants are a bad football. The Eagles are improving. I wouldn't say they're a great team yet. I think they still got a ways to go. But I just looked at that line. I thought it was pretty large, for an Eagles team that's like 500 to be a 9.5 point favorite. I just don't get that. So it wasn't that I had any, love for the Giants or anything like that. I think they're a terrible organization with a coaching staff that's got a short leash. But I'm going to take the Giants. I'm going to take the 9.5, and I'm going to, cross my fingers and hope for a big holiday present is what I'm looking for.
Yeah. All really, valid reasons right there. You sort of like look at this Eagle team, and it's just they Nick Sirianno's really done a nice job. I mean, he really has done a nice job growing the flowers out of the ground, as he said in a press conference early in the season. He's done a really nice job. And I look at this Giants team, and it's just another, like, if you're a fan of any of the New York football teams, you have to be shaking your head. Cause it's another season of just utter disappointment. If you're a Giants fan or if you're a Jets fan, and this is go time. Like, as a young coach and a young football team, you've got a chance to just, lay down and take down this Giants team and send a message. I think this Eagles team is going to do it. Look, if the playoffs started today, I'm most afraid of the 49ers. I wouldn't be terribly afraid of the Eagles if they made it. So I'm not saying that, but do I think they can beat this particular Giants team by 10 points this late in the season at home in Philadelphia? Absolutely. Thank you for the early holiday present.
Dave, we haven't had a really good game yet where the Eagles get booed by their own fans. They're probably the most bitter fan base on the planet. I remember the old stadium used to have a jail below it because of all the belligerent drunk fans they used to have there in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I don't think the new stadium has that, but I know the old stadium did. And, there was the old adage that they booed Santa Claus for 30 years. in Philadelphia. I get a sense they're going to be booing the Philadelphia Eagles here by the end of this one this week.
All right. On that note, there it is. Our top 10 games worth actually spending some money on in the COVID era. We're officially in the COVID era now, Brad, because we're 2 seasons in.
Dave, we're almost a quarter of the way into the COVID decade at this point.
I know. It's wild.
People forget it's almost been 2 years.
And I think what we're going to see here happen too is when the 2 teams that are left standing and are heading to the Super Bowl, I think you'll see the NFL create a Super Bowl bubble for those teams in Los Angeles, and they're probably already working on it, because the last thing they want to have, the National Football League really wants to have, is stars that make it to the Super Bowl not having a chance to play in the Super Bowl. Look, can you imagine the kid from the Saints who's starting for them at quarterback, the Notre Dame quarterback kid, starting in the Super Bowl because the other 3 or 4 people in front of him weren't available? So like the NFL is going to have to deal with COVID and the outbreak. And they're going to have to deal with it in some sort of bubble fashion, at least when we get to the Super Bowl. Mr. Hoyce, have any final thoughts as we head in?
I'm just wondering who the Super Bowl favorite is going to be next week. I mean, it seems like every 2 weeks.
Packers this week, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have every 2 weeks we have a new team, and we started the season with the Buccaneers and the Chiefs. And there was a lot of love for the Rams at one point. The Bills got a lot of love at one point. Here's my prediction, Dave. The next team people are going to be talking about the Super Bowl is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. How's that?
Only if Dak Prescott throws for 350 yards in a win.
They're one game out of the top spot in the NFC right now.
Yeah. Yep, they are. The Cowboys, my pick to win it all last year.
You're ahead of your own. You're ahead of your own time, Dave.
Exactly. I'm betting the futures in that one for sure. All right, Mr. Hoysev, I think we got to get out of here. So I want to thank everybody for joining. Make sure you stay healthy and have yourselves a tremendous holiday. That is Brad Hoysev over there in beautiful Southern California, where it's going to be raining for 5 days. I'm Dave DeBop in Northern California, where it's also going to be raining. That being said, we wish everybody a tremendous holiday season and enjoy all of your football viewing for week number 16.
God here, and thanks for tuning in to the Gods of Odds. For more semi-witty sports commentary, please make sure you check out mighty.rip. Okay, go ahead and kill the music now.